After dark, the west side of California glows like a strand of pearls, bright clusters of light hugging the coast. The east side fades into near silence, a wide dark that feels almost empty. One county here has fewer people than a single packed city block in Los Angeles. It is a shocking contrast in a state that is home to 40 million people. Between those two worlds sits a single colossal character. It stretches 400 miles, and it rises higher than any skyscraper. For centuries, it has been quietly picking winners and losers. Why would nature draw such an unforgiving line, and how did it leave half a state nearly empty? To find out, you have to see how one mountain can control the fate of millions. Imagine a county so empty, you could fit the entire population into a single Los Angeles office tower and still have room left over. That is Inyo County, tucked against California's eastern border, an expanse of desert and mountain stretching over 10,000 square miles, yet home to fewer people than some city high schools. 19,000 residents, scattered across a landscape bigger than New Jersey. To put that in perspective, Los Angeles County, just a few hours' drive to the west, packs more than 9.5 million people into a space not much larger. In Los Angeles, neighborhoods stack atop each other, freeways pulse with headlights, and even the night sky glows with the hum of human activity. Inyo, by contrast, is so quiet after dark you can hear the wind rattling through empty canyons. This is not just a quirk of one odd county. The whole eastern side of California follows the same vast pattern. Vast, silent, nearly untouched. If you took a map and colored in everywhere people actually live, the west would be splashed in bright, crowded color, while the east would barely register a mark. It is as if someone drew a line down the state and said, "Everyone on this side, please." The numbers do more than surprise. They defy expectation. How can a state famous for its population squeeze so many into one half, while the other sits nearly vacant? Something enormous must be tilting the scales. And just beyond Inyo's emptiness, a mountain wall begins to rise, hinting at the answer. Stretching 400 miles from the northern forest to the Mojave's edge, the Sierra Nevada rises like a stone backbone, straight down California's middle. This is not a gentle hill or a rolling range. It is a wall, abrupt and unyielding, with peaks slicing the sky above 14,000 feet. Mount Whitney, the highest point in the lower 48 states, stands at 14,505 feet, its summit often hidden by snow even when the valleys below bake in summer heat. The Sierra does not just sit quietly in the background, it dominates. It decides. On one side, it leans gently westward, its slopes blanketed in thick pine and redwood forests, catching every stray cloud that drifts in from the Pacific. On the other side, it drops steeply into desert, the land falling away so fast it feels like the world is splitting in two. This ridge is both a giver and a gatekeeper. It hoards winter storms, then releases them as snow and rain to the valleys below, feeding rivers and orchards and cities. But it also stands guard, blocking nearly every drop from reaching the east. From above, tracing its spine, the Sierra looks less like a border and more like a verdict, a single unbroken line that decides which side will teem with life and which will be left to silence and sun. Here is the mountain as both hero and obstacle, shaping the fate of everything in its shadow. The story of California splits at this ridge, and nothing on either side can escape its influence. Moist air comes rolling in from the Pacific, heavy and invisible, like a giant wet blanket drifting over California's western edge. But there is no easy passage east. The Sierra Nevada stands in the way, a wall so high it forces the air to climb, up and up, thousands of feet into the thin, cold atmosphere. As the air rises, it cools fast. Cooler air cannot hold as much moisture, so the water vapor condenses into clouds, then falls as rain or snow. It is like squeezing a sponge against a window. The harder you press, the more water comes out. On the west side, the sponge gets wrung out completely. In some places, the mountains catch more than 60 inches of rain and snow each year. In the highest reaches, the snow piles up, sometimes storing 20 cubic kilometers of water in a single season. That snow is California's natural vault, holding water that will trickle down to farms and cities all summer long. Now picture what happens on the other side. The air, now stripped of its moisture, flows over the crest and tumbles down the eastern slope. As it descends, it warms again, like turning on a giant hairdryer. Any last drops of moisture vanish. The wind arrives in the valleys below, dry and hot, leaving behind only dust and thirst. The difference is dramatic. While the western slopes stay green and wet, the east side, places like the Owens Valley or Death Valley, might see less than 2 inches of rain a year. That is less water than some houseplants get in a month. This invisible process, repeated with every storm, is why the Sierra does not just divide the land, it divides the very climate itself. One side flush with water, the other left in the shadow, parched and waiting. Stand at the edge of California's Central Valley on a cool morning, and the world feels soft and damp. Fog rolls in from the Pacific, curling around fields and orchards like a living thing. There is a chill in the air, but it is gentle, a kind of invitation. The ground underfoot is dark and rich, fed by melted snow that trickles down from the mountains. Redwood and pine forests crowd the western slopes, their needles glistening with dew. The scent is part ocean, part earth, and always a little bit sweet. Even in summer, the heat never quite bites, because the breeze carries traces of salt and moisture, and the hills stay green long after the rains have stopped. Climb higher, then slip over the ridge, and the world changes in a heartbeat. The Sierra's eastern side drops fast, so abruptly you can feel your ears pop. Gone is the fog, gone are the forests. The air turns sharp, the sun feels closer and hotter, and the ground cracks underfoot. Sagebrush and creosote take over, their leaves tough and silvery, built to survive on almost nothing. The soil is pale, sometimes white with salt, sometimes red with iron, always thirsty. In the distance, dry lake beds shimmer in the heat. The wind here carries dust, not moisture, and the silence is so deep you can hear your own footsteps echo. On one side, life crowds in, lush, layered, and noisy with birds. On the other, it spreads out thin, each plant and animal keeping its distance, each drop of water a prize. The Sierra does not just split the state, it creates two sensory worlds. One world breathes fog and salt, the other tastes of dust and sunburned stone. Stand between them and you feel the contrast. One side invites you to linger, the other tests your limits. Two worlds, made by the same mountain range, sitting side by side. Gold fever hit California like a lightning bolt in 1848. The first nuggets turned up at Sutter's Mill, tucked into the western foothills of the Sierra Nevada. That single discovery set off a stampede, tens of thousands of fortune seekers crossing oceans and continents, all converging on the west side of the mountains. Roads, supply camps, and whole towns sprang up seemingly overnight, hugging the rivers and valleys where water and access made life possible. By 1869, the Transcontinental Railroad hammered its way through the state, choosing the lower, gentler passes of the west, stitching these new communities together and pulling them even closer to the coast. Then came the aqueducts. In 1913, Los Angeles engineers finished a massive pipeline reaching across the mountains to tap the snowmelt of the eastern Sierra. Water that once fed ranches and meadows now flowed south to fuel a metropolis. Every early decision, where to dig, where to build, where to lay track or pipe, locked in the split. The west flourished, the east was left behind. Container ships unload at the port of Los Angeles and Long Beach, moving nearly 40% of America's imports. Cranes swing day and night, stacking metal boxes from China, Japan, and beyond, feeding a supply chain that stretches across the continent. Just up the coast, Silicon Valley hums with innovation. Glass towers and low-slung campuses house tech giants whose products shape daily life across the globe. This is the West in motion, dense, connected, and always growing. Meanwhile, cross the Sierra and the world slows down. In Mammoth Lakes, ski lifts spin through winter and hiking trails fill in summer, but the population barely tops 14,000. Farther south, the China Lake Naval Air Weapons Station sprawls across more than 1 million acres, land set aside for military testing, not for towns or neighborhoods. The East is a land of big spaces and small communities, where tourism, wilderness, and government jobs fill the gaps left by industry and agriculture. One side pulses with commerce, the other holds on to silence. Even now, nearly 95% of Californians live west of the Sierra's shadow. As water grows scarce and cities press against their limits, these ancient boundaries still dictate who thrives and who adapts. Sometimes the shape of a land quietly decides the future of millions. Thanks for watching.